Gotta love this time of year. Only one can be champion. Let's go playoff racing.
I said, hey, 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 there's no surrender. Let 'em hear my battle
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
While Hot Shoes, Acosta, and Diaz have been utilizing consistency, bad luck seems to plague our two-time champion Karl Modoff. He's only managed top fives twice this season and a lone victory. In spite of that, he holds third in the championship points. But if there was ever a track where drivers needed some luck, Lime Rock Park would be it. The road course equivalent to a bullring-style short oval, this place offers no place to hide and requires split-second decisions. Will the unpredictability of this track mean we'll get a fifth different winner? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, the stats on this track sound more like a city park hiking trail than a racing circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, to some extent, that's exactly what it is. They don't call this a speedway or a raceway. Instead, they call it a park. The track's personality is just that. It's small, inviting, and set in the beautiful Berkshire Mountains of New England. But it's deceptive and to some, the most challenging circuit on the whole calendar this season. These cars are big, and there's a lot of them. This track is, well, the opposite. It's only 1.5 miles in length, meaning a lot of NASCAR ovals are even bigger than this. And the base content layout we have here on iRacing is that of 7 turns. That's 6 to the right and 1 to the left. On top of that, drivers have to face the rapid climb up and down the 5-story hill, creating for speed, mistakes, and drivers being left with absolutely no time to catch their breath. A 1-hour stint to LRP is going to be absolutely brutal, as many IMSA drivers, even this past weekend in the real world, didn't even want to take their stints that long. The park was one of the most exciting places, at least for me, to go as a kid, and as you'll see in a moment, this park is no exception. Join us now for a close-up view of how to get around here with the GSRC Lap Guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Lime Rock Park. Big Bend will be by far the most popular place for passes. However, because it's essentially the only halfway decent spot, most drivers will defend early to cover you off. Make sure to get a late apex off of here and avoid taking too much curb. Then quickly switch sides to set up for the left-hander. Once again, a late apex without climbing the curb serves you best, but you get no time to rest because a little lift and a swing through the S's takes you onto no-name straight. Keep your head up to avoid tangling with anyone who got a run on you as you cross the track. Then comes the terrifying uphill. You can often see the Ford go all four wheels off the ground if a driver carries enough speed. There's very little room for error along this back half of the course, including through West Bend. Next, you'll drop back downhill through the diving turn where it's critical that you get the car tucked into the apex. If you find yourself having to hesitate back onto the pit straight, you'll be very vulnerable to attack. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Lime Rock Park. There we see a lap around Lime Rock Park. They tick away in less than a minute. And as always, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products can create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series will also get a ButtKicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team and the team's championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Let's take a glance at the Drivers' Championship real quick. And Nick, how are things sitting? Because from what I looked at, it looks awful close.
It certainly is, and it definitely is up at the top. Two BMWs, two teammates actually, Abner Acosta and Michael Diaz from Obsidian Racing. They are only separated by 3 points. First and second, there you see they didn't budge any in the standings, but they got a lot closer. Karl Modoff, despite all his bad luck, he's at least been consistent with his top 10s after coming off of a poor 9th place last week. I'm sure he's going to be looking for more, but he is 16 points back still, definitely in striking distance. Javi Utreras is one that has really surprised a couple of people in the last week. He jumped up 3 spots last week from 7th. He is now only 21 points back from the lead. He's fending off Moises Caraballo, the only multi-time winner this season. He sits in 5th with a couple of inconsistent runs himself. Over in the teams championships, I already mentioned Obsidian Racing. They've been pretty dominant. These are two-car teams, so you can, at this point in the season, after 5 rounds, you can have a maximum of 10 top 5s. Well, they have 9, which means only one of their drivers at one point or another has finished outside the top 5. To put that in perspective, the team in second place, their team Bushfink Copper, they have 1 top 5. They are there with SRT Esports West, pretty far behind, almost triple digits there for Obsidian Racing to have over everyone else. There you see the Racing Sim Tools, Podium Hunters, and the Coca Motoclar race team back in 5th. Joe?
And if you've never watched this series before, of course, let's give you the rundown. We are in race 6 out of 10, so we're now past halfway through. They can pick between 4 different makes of cars because this is GTE racing, and these are 3 GTE cars that race in real life that you see listed on your screen. But it is a 60-minute race, which means they will have 1 pit stop because they've limited the fuel cells of these cars compared to what they have in real life. Now, they also have an incident cap, which means if you have 24 off tracks or you rack up enough incident points from contacts or spins or whatnot, then you will be disqualified. So they got to be careful about that. It's easy to slip off the track around here. They also have no spare car to save them. Real quick, though, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the rest of the pre-race show in just a moment, so don't go away. Welcome back to Lime Rock Park here, where we're watching qualifying for this 6th round out of 10 in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. As always, you can catch this series on the iRacing eSports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you have the opportunity. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click on subscribe. It'll be easy to spot because if you haven't subscribed, it'll be big and red. Then you'll get all of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series, as well as many other great racing series in your YouTube feed. Taking a look at the qualifying order right now, Andre Espinoza has recently taken the pole away from Carl Modoff, who was up at the top. And if ever Carl needed a good race today, especially a pole, I think today would be the day, Nick.
Yeah, like you mentioned, bad luck has really plagued him this season, but we know he can be fast because just a couple of rounds ago at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, he had that dominant over 7-second win over the entire field. So, I mean, we've seen him have speed similar to that of last season where he won just about everything. He's just got to get back in that form and get consistent in rhythm. And a track like this, yeah, exactly like you said, I think would be a great spot for that to happen.
The stewards were talking to them before the qualifying started, making sure the drivers were aware that it's incredibly difficult to get by people around here with the just nature of the track. But we're seeing a little bit of a smaller field compared to previous rounds, Nick. Only 21 have signed up so far, and I'm not sure if all of those will actually take to the grid. Do you still think that we'll see issues with lap traffic and things like that?
Well, I definitely think so. A lot of iRacers like to do those little, Mazda Cup races here at Lime Rock. You might only have 9 or 10 drivers in that. You're dealing with lap traffic in that with small cars in a small field. This is, right now we're up to 21 drivers, and they're all driving these GTE cars. Really big. They like to hog up the entire track, and, I definitely think those leaders, give them a handful of laps. I think they're definitely going to come around to the rear end of the field.
Just to give you an idea, the pole time, which actually went back to Modoff now, is at 1:45, or excuse me, not 1:45, 45:9. See, I'm so used to giving a minute before there. They are going around here so quickly that when you get back to the last car with a qualifying time and Joey Trungale at a 47.1, you're looking at a second and a half difference between these cars. So that will likely mean that we'll be catching quickly, like he said. Leif Peterson, who we're just watching, ticking another one off as we go to Christian Eisler now, who sits in 6th position. He's got a 46.3 currently on the board. He comes through West Bend and down towards Diving Turn. Onto the front stretch, Nick, one of the first or few places that really I expect we'll see passes. Do you think is there anywhere else maybe something could happen?
I mean, you're always going to have those drivers trying other places, but when you come here to Lime Rock, Big Bend here, turn number 1 and 2, that double apex, the right-hander, so hard to get right, so hard to perfect. A lot of these drivers, that's going to be their best passing opportunity. I think I'd say all the drivers, that's going to be their best passing opportunity. You get that big run down the 50-foot drop onto the front stretch. You get a little bit of slipstream, and you can just slingshot around just into the turn. Got to be careful, though, because that track switches back to the left side. So if you haven't cleared whoever you're passing, you're going to be stuck on the outside.
Checkered flag is out for qualifying. Modov comes across but does not better his time. So the 45.986 is currently the best that we've got. Michael Diaz tries to go better, but he's a 10th and a half off. He gets onto the front row, though. That'll be important for Diaz since he is second in the points. Acosta, who is leading, also sets his fastest lap of the race in the final lap, but is only in 5th. He's got a lot of work to do. Do we have anybody else coming across the line? Looks like Zach Hefner, the Buckeye driver sitting in 8th position, who won at least once last season, is going to get one more in, and that's not going to be good enough for Zach. So let's see, we've got Cristobal Valenzuela out there, the last car. Now, has he crossed the line, though? I think he has, because he's coming in to the pits, try to push it as hard as he can to really practice getting the most out of that. But that is it for our qualifying. Let's go through our starting grid for round 6. Karl Modov trying to take win number 2, trying to get another championship, but he's got 2 cars to pass in the points to do that. This pole position will do him well towards that. Michael Diaz is going to try to stop the domination that Karl has seen. He's in 2nd place when we get the green flag. And then 3rd will be Andre Espinoza. Then you've got Pablo Uribe in P4. The inside of row 3 has our current points leader, Abner Acosta, being flanked by Michael Stogbauer in 6th position. Christian Eisler will start in 7th, and Zach Hefner will be P8. Leif Peterson will start 9th, and Josh Daniels rounds out your top 10.
Back in 11th, looking to fight for a top 10 spot, it's going to be Corey Clark and Jeffrey Arroyan. Back in 13th and 14th. Making up row number 7, it's going to be Matthew Hall and Cristobal Valenzuela. Takeshi Kita will round out the top 15, but here's the big name stuck back in the field, Javi Utreras, who sits 4th in the points. He's going to have to fight his way up from 16th at a track, definitely, like you said, not known for easy passing. Ken Rodriguez right behind him in 17th, flanked alongside by Rodrigo Munoz in 18th. Row number 10 is going to go to Joey Trungale, and then the 2 drivers that didn't qualify, Matthew Tina and Tyler Gilmet.
Now, Gilmet is not in the session right now, so I'm not sure that he'll start. We might be down to 20 drivers instead of the 21 that we saw there on our list. They're waiting for the Porsche pace car to pull off. We'll go racing here for 60 minutes around Lime Rock Park. Going to be obviously more than 60 laps that they'll be able to tick off. It'll be fascinating to see just how many they can pull before all is said and done. Getting ready to follow down the Sam Posey Straight into Big Bend, the long sweeping right-hander. Let's talk about the pits, though, while we wait for them to run their pace lap. Both the entry and exit, Nick, I feel like could be problem areas.
Yeah, especially that entrance. You saw, I believe it was Cristobal Valenzuela practicing that on his last qualifying run. Just trying to maximize that tricky pit entrance. It's a little, it's very tight here, of course, but it kind of has one of those little chicanes, one of those little kinks in the pit entrance. The pit exit as well, not particularly dangerous, just where it's placed. it throws you right into Big Bend, and that's exactly where a lot of drivers are going to be blindsided by cars exiting pit road. Definitely going to be something to watch for.
So we'll see when the pit stops start whether or not that causes issues. And a short lap means that we should have more variety, more options for drivers, depending on how much fuel they can save on when they pit. Could that offer chances for drivers to play leapfrog and make a pass with strategy instead of on track? Pack heading up the uphill, where the cars will definitely get light. I know when I was doing some laps in the 4GT some weeks ago, that the car could manage to get four wheels off the ground if you hit it just right. We'll have to keep an eye out there, see if anybody gets fully airborne. But as the pace car comes around out of diving turn, will now peel off into pit lane, giving control to Carl Modoff. Can he take his second victory this season? He gets a good jump, and the green flag waves, immediately pulls off to the left to take to the racing line ahead of Michael Diaz. Bit of a battle for fourth position with Uribe fending off on Acosta. He's going to go the long way around, though. Can he find the grip without the marbles on the corner quite yet? He does. Acosta up to fourth, and the rest of the field is through.
Yeah, everyone keeping it clean, trying to get that down to single file as quickly as possible. These drivers know the risk of running side by side with these big boxy cars through these tight sections of the track. Right now, though, at the front, it is Carl Modoff. They go over that hill, and you can see those wheels coming off the ground, and it's Michael Diaz sticking right behind him.
Indeed, it is short, it is bumpy, and it is narrow around here. Valenzuela already with a problem coming off of the uphill. I think he's the only driver that's had problems here on the opening lap, and he hit the wall hard as we see up at the front. Acosta going for another position, making up for his qualifying. He's passed Espinoza and already up to fourth on the second lap.
That caused a big checkup back with Pablo Uribe, Zach Hefner, and Michael Stagbauer back in 5th, 6th, and 7th. They have to get themselves sorted out. Definitely have to give each other a lot of room as they go through there.
An update on Valenzuela. He was able to get the car going despite the hard hit with the wall. We'll try to get to that replay soon in a minute as we watch that fight up for what is effectively 5th position, being led by Uribe. Hefner gets a good run, a little bit too much of a good run as he's all the way off into the grass. Somehow he keeps the car from spinning out there. Stagbauer is not close enough to take advantage as they break for the first corner.
They do have a 24 incident cap here at Lime Rock Park, and that does honestly come into play. Honestly, that turn exactly, especially those drivers, it's hard to judge how much momentum you have going down the hill, and you saw it there. But with over 60 laps being run this evening, those are going to add up.
Certainly will. And sadly, it looks like we will not have the replay of Valenzuela, so we'll keep an eye on him, see if that damage has any sort of effect. This is another run onto the front stretch from that same group we were watching before, but this time Hefner, even though he keeps it on track, it unfortunately is slower, and Stagbauer, who gets very close behind him, does not even poke his nose out. He just stays in line, waiting patiently.
Saw some interesting manufacturer games being played in the real world IMSA race this past weekend. BMW really struggled. They said this track just not really suited for them. Going to be interesting to see if that can come into play for drivers like Michael Stagbauer trying to get that big BMW around this track.
I love how much air we're seeing some of these cars get from that low cam that Dougie's given us. Up at the front, we should point out that Diaz has been holding on to the back of Modoff. There's been very little drop off. It's less than half a second between them. There you see the BMW of Diaz chasing the Porsche of Modoff. And Abner Costa is back there in third, but he's about 3/4 of a second behind second place.
Definitely, it's a lot easier to stick with him than it is to get around him.
They work their way around the top half of the course. Our leader, Carl Modoff, taking it down through diving turn once again. This time, though, Acosta, as he comes through, he gained about 2/10 on that last lap alone.
He is coming.
And he's dropped Espinoza, who he passed not too long ago, back by about a second. These top three certainly seem to have something underneath them that the rest of the field has not quite picked up on yet. And again, this is open setup in these cars, so the GTE cars have plenty that you can tweak. I suspect that these drivers have tried to maximize that with how little gains there are around this circuit with the driver itself. Down in sixth position, Hefner starting to fall away from Uribe and into the clutches of Stogbauer more and more. But the BMW can't seem to find a way past the Ferrari.
Yeah, and that's the best opportunity that we've seen before, historically, here at Lime Rock Park. Down into turn one, the big bend. He gets close there, but just not enough room on track, not enough gumption there for the 327 car to make a pass around him.
Now no name straight towards the uphill. Could Stogbauer maybe get a better run off of this climbing right-hander? No, they're about dead even with one another, knowing just how to take the car. But he stays with them, trying to keep that pressure on, seeing if there's a mistake or any sort of opening, some hole in the wall that he can find. He gets a great run off of diving turn, but every time he's had this, we haven't seen him do anything. And yet again, he doesn't even take a look. This surprises me with Michael.
Hefner also straight over, maybe about a foot to the right there. I think that might have been a little bit hesitantly a defensive maneuver there. I think he was just trying to check his mirrors.
With this stalemate, we've also got one a little farther down. Remember Utredes? Well, he's found another car that he's trying to pass. It's Josh Daniels, excuse me. I can get control of my tongue. Daniels a little slow through the uphill. Utredes not willing to try and risk it here on the high portion of the circuit. Maybe setting himself up for the first corner. Right on board with Javi. A little bit off the apex for Daniels, but it's still a good exit off the corner. That's going to keep him safe for another lap.
Yeah, Javi's already moved up 4 spots from the start, and we mentioned in the pre-race show just how crucial the race could be for Javi Utreres. He is 4th in the points and very much still alive in that championship hunt, but if he's gonna get held up back here, it's not looking good for him.
And Kenny Rodriguez is in the pits because he's had an issue. This is very similar to what we saw with Valenzuela. It happened on the uphill about a minute ago. Let's see if we can find the replay. But he sent it into the wall. Oh, here, we'll get around to it here. It's a short lap, so we'll wait for the car to cycle around to the uphill.
You'll see him here in the first few turns, maybe getting out of sorts. And I noticed he actually locked up the brakes. It looked like right before he went up the hill. You'll see it here on this right-hander.
Yeah, this is back onto No Name Straight, and here's where it happens. You'll see the car bobble. And then as he tries to catch it, it's already heading to the inside, and from there, there's no saving it. So we come back live, you can see he's having to take repairs. He took a tow because of that. While that was happening, we don't need a replay, but Josh Daniels spun in Big Bend and is now back to 18th place. We're at the front of the field, though. This is Diaz giving chase to Modoff, but Diaz has finally fallen off. Modoff pulling the gap up to about a second over the number 45, and this is critical again because Diaz is ahead of the points, or Diaz is ahead of Modoff in the points.
Yeah, this is definitely helping Modoff. Not seeing, not sure if we're going to see Modoff pull away nearly as much as we did a couple weeks ago at Canadian Tire, but he's definitely holding a consistent race right now, and Diaz trying to fend him off, but while Diaz trying to close in rather, while Diaz is trying to close in, he's trying to fend off Abner Acosta, who has slowed down a little bit in the pursuit, it looks like.
Right on board with Diaz, looking up ahead at our leader. If you're wondering about that point situation and who else is involved besides those three. Fourth place is Javi Utreres, who we've been following his progress. He is up to 11th, by the way, so he is gaining, but there's still a lot of racing to go, yet there is still a lot of cars to pass for the number 10. He's currently working on Arroyon. He's got about a second to catch up to him.
Yeah, a lot of these 20 drivers, or I should say 19 currently on track, kind of spacing themselves out. I think that's partially due to the matter of just the little bit of gap in competition here. A lot of inexperience, the drivers were saying last week when it came to this track, and also part due to just drivers trying to be patient here in the early stages.
They certainly are showing that patience. We've seen some drivers who've had good runs not even want to take it. Maybe thinking survival, thinking better opportunities will come. You can see we're only 10 minutes into this thing. Utreres not gaining on Arroyon. Actually, he dropped a little bit of time even. So maybe this pace is genuine. Wonder if Javi is just struggling to get to grips with this track. Let's look at Stogbauer, because this is the one that we were watching earlier that I was saying was deciding not to try and make any aggressive attempts to make an overtake, and it's still on the same driver, Zach Hefner in the Ferrari. There you see through the windshield. They come through the S's and on to No Name Straight. Two wheels off though from Michael Stogbauer. Great catch from Michael, but he's still got to try and make the pass here. Don't look now though, because behind them is a known fast driver, Christian Eisler, also coming through. He's in 8th position.
And that was a mistake there by Stogbauer that actually started 2 or 3 turns before that big slide we saw. Like I said, it's so hard here to catch your breath and to gather yourself up. You have no time to think here at Lime Rock, because by the time you're fixing your last mistake, you're already turning into the next corner.
Yeah, one error blends into another, and Corey Clark is falling down the order. And I think it's because he had an off in the first turn. Big Ben sucked another one out into the runoff. Let's look and see exactly how this happened.
It's like maybe a little wheel hop. Yeah.
You see him onto the front stretch. Didn't look terribly different there. And then the Porsche trying to get on the binders. Yep. Oh, look at it understeer. Wow. It was just on a almost a crash course. Thankfully, he kept his head about him and kept it from sliding into the tires on the outside. But he certainly lost a bunch of time on that lap. Back to about 5 seconds. A little bit farther down in the field, battles happened all throughout in this series. Joey Trungale and Josh Daniels working on one another. Remember, Josh Daniels earlier was fighting with Utreres, and well, something must have happened to him, and he's fallen a number of positions behind. So maybe trying to regain this spot from Joey Trungale.
Yeah, Daniel's probably faster based off of where he started, but I don't see a whole lot of damage on that car from his incident with Utreres, but looks like just being held up here by the nature of the track.
And actually what happened with Daniels is he had side-to-side contact. I went back and checked with Utreres, so that's what sent him backwards. He half spun in the first corner trying to collect the car, and I wonder if he's got any damage because he had a big bobble coming through the left-hander.
Might have had some floor damage or suspension or something.
I think Stogbauer's finally got the run that he wants because he's looking to the inside. Michael has the car in there. Hefner doesn't defend, though. Tries to hold it the long way around, but it is all for naught, as finally in front of him, Michael Stogbauer finally gets that P6 away.
Big slide out of Hefner there. He was drifting out of Big Bend, trying to save that spot. It was a little wide there. He's going to have to gather himself up here on No Name straightaway. Looks like he's just going to have no choice but to tuck in line behind Stogbauer.
That's good news for Michael because then he won't have to go as defensive without Hefner breathing down his neck for a couple laps. Can he continue to run away is the question. And in all that fighting, I'm a bit surprised that Eisler did not gain more time.
Yeah, and on top of that, you can see just how much that did hold Michael Stogbauer up. He has a big gap ahead to Pablo Valenzuela Uribe there in the top 5. So yeah, it's a big gap that he's going to have to overcome here.
Let's jump up to second place because not only has Diaz dropped well off of Karl Modov, so the story is no longer about the lead, but he's under threat from his teammate, Acosta. It is now a battle for P2, and I'm starting to wonder if, despite Diaz's early pace, maybe the car going away from him, maybe his setup not good on the long run, because he's getting a little bit of a train as well. Andre Espinoza is back there in 4th, not too far behind. It's 3 cars, all from 2nd to 3rd to 4th. And don't forget behind them, Pablo Uribe starting to close in. It could be a 4-car battle soon.
Definitely very well could be. Not sure if they're being held up here by Diaz or if they're just kind of following him.
Well, for sure, right now they're following him. It was a big mistake, actually, from Acosta coming through West Bend. Cost him a few car lengths. Had to get out of it as he almost drifted wide out of that long right sweeper. Now, where is the lap traffic? Because that could change the game. And right now, Cristobal Valenzuela is being caught by Modov. After him, it's a ways before they get to the next 2. So they'll have one little bit of traffic, and then it's going to get a little bit more exciting as they get to the back of the field.
Man, Acosta seems to be taking that jump there a little bit more aggressively than anyone else.
Watch from Acosta's perspective. He chases down the number 45 machine down in front that you see on your screen, and then in the rear view TV you can see the likes of Espinoza continuing to stalk him. Definitely regained that time that he lost with that mistake. Gets it down to 0.3 of a second here in the first half of the lap.
You saw there just how bumpy and bulky the ride was, but watch here as he goes uphill.
Whew. Manages to survive it. Makes me wonder what would happen if we took the new super trucks out here.
They should
Pro
come
4s
here.
and Pro. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll have to try that later, maybe after the broadcast. Down the front stretch, once again, Diaz still leading in second place. Oh, he's a little wide in the middle of Big Bend, but he cuts back down and is able to deny Acosta an opportunity. Had a little bit, actually we had a pass not long ago between Daniels and Trungale. Remember, he was working on him quite a while. This was going out of the diving turn. I think Daniels just got himself a great run, Trungale a horrible one. And you see there, the red Ferrari ducks to the inside of the Porsche and makes it happen after many laps trailing that car. Oh, we've had a problem with Utretas. Our 4th place driver in the championship was off track and he went for a tumble. In fact, this was right in front of Lee Anderson. So we'll want to watch his view after we watch Javi. You see the BMW come up the hill. He's going to just barely clip the tires, and around it goes.
Nice little barrel roll there as we ride on board with the driver that was right behind him through that, Leif Peterson.
Must have mistakenly hooked up his N64 controller today. Peterson, his view sees, Usually you don't want to see the roof of the car ahead of you when you come over that hill. Great heads up from Leif Peterson. That gifts him 10th place. Let's jump back up to that battle for second place. Diaz coming under more pressure now. It's down to 0.2 of a second between himself and Acosta. Diaz still winless this season. Acosta has one under his belt. He's leading him in the points. I'm sure he'd love to get ahead because there's only 3 separating them right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any team orders here. I think this is going to be a nice little fight between these two. Acosta definitely has been closing in just very slowly. He's made a couple of mistakes to set him back as well. I think he might have been able to overtake him by now if it weren't for them.
Look at how close he's getting behind him now. Yes, these are both Obsidian drivers, Obsidian Racing drivers, who are fighting for this spot. But if they quarrel amongst themselves, they're already 3.3 seconds behind Modoff. That, I mean, it could yet cost them more points to Modoff because off tracks could eventually cost them. They could get an accident, or maybe Espinosa could take advantage of their fighting and demote them positions. So they really need to be careful here.
Yeah, and Modoff, the driver, sitting in 3rd in the points as well. We've seen how dangerous he can be when he gets in the lead.
I'm not sure that this will give him the points lead if things finish as they are, but it will certainly close the gap. And you cannot count out Karl Modoff. We haven't seen any actual pit strategy yet. No drivers have taken their official stop, their scheduled stop. Wow, look at now Espinosa starting to threaten as he got really close behind Acosta.
Yeah, that's just a couple of mistakes made by Acosta. You can see how quickly a driver like Espinosa can close up on him.
Had to back out of it. These cars do have a little bit of aero dependency, so I'm wondering if the wake maybe got the better of them through some of the faster corners. Our leader just lapped the first car that he's going to have to deal with today, with 18 of them still out on track, including himself. Still a fairly large field. So Cristobal Valenzuela, the first one to go a lap down actually on the pavement. The SRT driver of Espinosa continuing to hold behind, and they have brought in Uribe into the fight. He is now about a half second behind, so it's 4 cars dueling for second position.
There's a big jump there that last lap for Andres Espinosa. He's definitely trying to push harder and harder, it looks like, and close back in on Abner in front of him.
Not even halfway through this race quite yet. If anybody is having trouble passing, now could be a good time to duck into the pits. I will be curious to see how much time they lose. I mean, obviously they'll probably go a lap down, but will it stick them in the thick of traffic, or will they kind of be somewhere in the clear?
Yeah, that puts the emphasis on making mistakes in pit road too. You don't want to speed, don't want to get too hot coming in, don't want to lock up the tires, don't want to slide through the box, none of that. Because that is really going to cost you a lot of track position that, I mean, you're seeing it now being very valuable.
Now there's Modoff now up to 3.3 seconds ahead. And you want to be clear to those behind you if you're pitting too, because with how soon they'll probably have to get on the brakes, hopefully nobody will run into the back of one another. Up and over the crest, not as big of a hop from Karl Modoff, looking nice and smooth. Wants to keep those tires planted on the pavement. Really no change back in the battle for second that we've been watching. They stay where they are, and other than Espinosa losing a little time to Acosta, they're staying pretty similar to how we last saw them. They are catching up to Cristobal Valenzuela. So, will he act as a pick? Will they catch him in a good spot? There's some places where you really can't get out of the way of the leaders. So he could potentially have to give up a lot of time. And he is about 10 seconds back from Trungale. So he's got nobody to fight with. So he could potentially pull over and give up a lot of that time if he doesn't want to cause a headache for these drivers. But that's a big if.
Indeed. It looks like they might catch him maybe next lap or in the later stages of this lap. It'll be interesting to see the first 2 or 3 turns, just how quick he is. This is all going to stack him up, though, it looks like.
I would think Acosta would be pushing now to try and get right up behind him.
Right, yeah.
So that he can be there if he does see the door opening. Oh, look at this. So he pulls over one. Ooh, just in time for the next, but this is not good for those behind him. Holds up Espinoza just slightly. Uribe tries to take advantage, blocking maneuver down to the inside with the defense on Espinoza to hold Uribe back. It was close, and I don't blame Pablo for trying. It just didn't quite work out.
Hats off to Cristobal Valenzuela, though. That was a pretty savvy move there. A little duck to the outskirts of the racing line there to let them all by as safely as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just wasn't quite enough of a gap there at the apex. And it held up Espinoza, but no harm, no foul, I suppose, as Espinoza stays in 4th place. But he does lose a lot of time on Acosta. The gap up to them went from a little under a second now to up to 1.8 seconds. Makes me wonder how much, once iRacing gets the new version of Lime Rock Stand, we'll see this layout used. Oh, Espinoza off track, coming off of the diving turn. Uribe finally gets what he's looking for. He moves up into P4 with that mistake. Let's watch from onboard Espinoza, see exactly what happened here, because that caught me by surprise. Oh, he was way off the apex.
Yeah, just a lot of understeer again. We've seen that with a number of drivers tonight.
Made a note in my script before we came live saying that small mistakes could have big consequences, and that right there, he really wasn't that far off, and that's all it took for Pablo to pounce and take it away. Meanwhile, taking away the lead, Modov has gapped it to about 4.5 seconds now. Diaz continuing to drop, but staying ahead of his teammate Acosta, who's been unable to find a hole in the armor and try and get through. He's about halfway, though, at this point. If I was Acosta, I would start thinking about some sort of alternate strategy.
I was curious as well as to what the leaders are thinking. Karl Modov in this situation, what his pit strategy is going to be. Maybe he'll wait for someone else to make a move, or maybe he's got something planned up his sleeve himself.
I guess if I was Modov, I'd just wait out there until I started to hit heavy traffic and then come in. And thus far, he really hasn't hit any huge clump of cars. As we ride on board with Acosta looking up at Diaz.
Yeah, and the way these drivers are spaced out, Modov, you know, surely he's going to be hitting a couple more cars in the near future. I think Joey Trungale is the next one, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything significant. Nothing like a 2 or 3 car battle he's approaching.
Let's take a glance, since we are about halfway and before the scheduled pit stops, at our winners and losers since the grid. Let's see. Oh, wait, it sounds like we've got a little bit of a battle. Looks like Hall just got past. No, Munoz just got past Hall. Let's look at the replay here. This happened on the exit of Big Bend. Little dirt to the outside from Hall.
Yeah.
And Munoz, another case very similar to what we saw just a bit ago, where one driver making a mistake means that the other steps through the door as quick as they can.
That off track there by Matthew Hall. Just grabbed him, clipped him around.
It was the tiniest touches to the outside. I think we finally have our first scheduled stopper, Corey Clark. He's coming back out. It's a relatively short pit lane here, so 28 seconds is all he lost from cone to cone, and he came out just ahead of Michael Stogbauer, and Stogbauer nearly took it off the track trying to stay out of him as they entered. That gives you a good idea of what the difficulties are. Whoa! Chops him off. Either he wasn't happy about that or he didn't realize he wasn't clear. So drivers will likely be coming out in front of other cars and causing issues down into that first corner. Another one of our drivers farther down, Trungale, taking a scheduled stop.
You've always got to wonder if this is going to trigger anything with the drivers up front, like Modoff, or even further back, the battling between Diaz and Acosta.
Thing is, I'm not sure that we'll see any tires being taken throughout the course of this race, the way that they're getting these quick splash and dashes on fuel, because they cannot take tires and fuel at the same time. There is our winners and losers. Munoz right now actually doing one of the best in 11th, and looks like Tina, who I don't think we've even put the cameras on once, up 7 positions. Tina, one of the only one of two, and the only one that started really, that didn't get a qualifying lap in, hence why he is up a few.
Yeah, Munoz, on the other hand, he did get qualifying time, and he has been our hard charger tonight so far, up 7 spots from 18th.
So when we take a look at him on screen, I can tell you that Josh Daniels has also taken a pit stop and is back out. Matthew Hall, who we saw have a spin coming through Big Bend, is coming in to see if he can get his work done and back out on the track. Down to 28 minutes left to go. Now, Hall is coming back out of the pits. Let's see if he causes issues for anybody into the pit lane. Looks like Cristobal Valenzuela going to have to take a little bit to the outside, but he will actually be something good for Hall because he is a lap down. Oh, who is that at the side of the track? That was Corey Clark. Corey Clark suddenly finding himself with a mistake from ahead of Zach Hefner, slides it into the tires and makes hard contact on the nose.
He probably knew he had fast cars behind him, and he was trying to hustle and maybe even get out of the way, but yeah, slid over the curbs just a little bit, and it just looped him around, or looped him into the wall, I should say. See him wash out a little bit there. Yeah.
And from there is not much runoff to the right side of the track. So as soon as it slid that way, he was certainly not stopping it before it went into the tires. He returns in 16th position, and he's already taken his pit stop. So if he has damage that is hurting his pace, he will likely not want to come in again unless it is severe. Neither of the drivers in second, the battle for second, have come in to stop quite yet. Diaz still ahead of Acosta. But Uribe, ever since he got past Espinoza, has been leading him, but not by much. Look at that, 0.2 of a second between the number 23 and the 87.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I think this would be a great opportunity for Andres Espinoza to come in and pit, like you said earlier. Try the undercut here. I think he might be able to jump him if you can come in there before Uribe. Same with Diaz and Acosta. I think it would be a great time for Acosta to come in and try to jump Diaz.
No dice yet for any of these four. Let's watch and see out of diving turn if anybody is listening to the broadcast. And thus far, nobody. So they are not taking our advice. We haven't really mentioned it yet because it's not too drastic of a factor, but the temperature on the surface of the track is 91 degrees. It's 84 degrees air temperature. So even though it's something of a slightly hot day, it's not too hot out on track. A little bit farther down, 7th place contested between Hefner and Eisler. Hefner in the gold and white Ferrari. The plain white Ferrari is Christian Eisler. Not sure why we're not getting a paint for him. Usually he's got his Bushfink. Ooh, as he has a big off coming out of diving turn. Eisler pushing, but it's really not gaining him a whole lot. He's still in 8th position, which is actually one down from where he started. Gonna have to hustle and keep the car a little bit more on the tarmac if he wants a chance to try and pass Zachary. Freudian slip if there ever was one.
The designers here on iRacing have put a porta potty in the pit lane. I think that's.
Thank you for saving me on that one.
Yeah, I think that's where I would. I mean, if you're just talking about pit strategy, that's all.
Yes, exactly. An update on our leader ahead of 2nd place. 7.5 seconds now between those two. So Modov really is just pulling away. And I believe Matthew Hall got by his first driver who has yet to pit. Or no, was actually that... Oh, actually that was another car who just pit. It was Tina who he went by. So that moves Tina down to 15th now that he's taken his stop. Hall back up to 13th and currently our highest pitter.
Yeah, they are losing quite a bit of ground, like you mentioned, going even a lap down when they do come in.
Yeah, only 12 cars left on the lead lap. Takeshi Kita currently the last one. And Modov, as we are now at 23 minutes, we're getting towards the end of that pit window. He's going to stay out another lap. Diaz and all 3 cars behind him will as well. Interesting to note, when we weren't looking, Espinosa's dropped off of Uribe. There's about half a second between, 1 second between Uribe and Espinosa now. That's 4th and 5th place, respectively. There you can see the lap time differences. Uribe leading ahead consistently faster. Every lap, look at that.
Yeah, this is interesting, like you said. Uribe getting faster. Oh, almost looked like a little peek to the pits there, but no, they all stay out. We've seen this before, Joe. We've seen, 3 or 4 car battles just like this one at tracks before, where everyone is waiting on everyone else to pit, and by the time they've figured out their games and their timing and strategy with their pit cycles, they all end up having to pit at the same time because that's when they run out of fuel, and they all kind of come out the exact same way they went in.
Someone needs to teach their strategists the word undercut at some point as they go over the hill, the uphill, and then through West Bend. The good news is we really don't have to wait long each lap to see whether or not they're going to come in this time around at 45 seconds per. And once again, they're all going to stay out. This has not been the race that we were predicting. There's been a little drama out there. There's been a few drivers making contact, some having spins and heading into the wall. But I'm honestly, Nick, a little bit shocked at how calm things have been on track. Oh, and I say, wait, did our leader? No, Corey Clark. Corey Clark is in the wall, and he was involved with somebody else. Speak of the devil. Munoz was involved with that. He came upon the scene after Corey Clark understeered. There you see, and he was right on the racing line.
Oh, hard hit there. Yeah. Hard contact for Munoz coming into that one. Just not enough time to get that car jerked over to the right.
He tried it first and then suddenly realized that he wasn't going to be able to make it. And then when he tried to pull to the left, well, suddenly it smashed into the back of the number 24. Munoz continues. Clark is in the pits after that contact. It is a rear engine car, with it being a Porsche. That's not where you want someone to hit you. Oof. All right, Peterson in for a scheduled stop. Where is Matthew Hall? Matthew Hall's off track. This is coming out of the left-hander. The number 37 makes his own mistake when it's critical, when he needs to catch Peterson, and loses out. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, just a little slide. He's lucky not to hit the wall here, as you'll see.
Ooh, looks like that inside curb just had him bouncing.
Interesting how that hooked him over to the left.
He loses out to Tina, who takes the position back, and Valenzuela, who gets by, but Valenzuela has yet to stop. This means that Leif Peterson is now our highest pitter. Oh, who was that we just saw off track?
It's Tina.
Way wide coming out of the S's. Manages to hold it together, thankfully. Actually, that might be worth an onboard, because Tina was very, very close to the tire barrier on the exit. Watch the left side of the car.
Oof.
That is a hold your breath moment. Now that we're back live, Tina in 14th position, but Stogbauer now takes our highest pitter role, and I think he's going to lose that very quickly because our leader is in.
Munoz in as well. Pablo Uribe and Espinoza have come in as well, but Diaz and Acosta have stayed on track.
Interesting. So the two teammates apparently running similar setups and strategy, apparently, possibly.
Looks like
Molotov is back
Espinoza might be able to jump him here. Yeah, he will. He got into that stall a lot cleaner than Pablo Uribe. He's going to jump him in the pits.
Jumped him by a lot. Can we get a pit comparison between Espinoza, the 87, and Uribe, the 23?
Uribe was really conservative coming into the box. Really crept in there.
That seems to have cost him.
And now Diaz is in the pits, but Acosta has stayed out. That's going to cycle him right now to the lead.
You see the 3 seconds difference between the two of them. Acosta temporarily leading. Eisler stays out. Oh, and Diaz had to back into it. That will be critical. Acosta just needs a few decent laps and a decent pit stop. He could be ahead.
Acosta could even afford to creep in the box like we just saw Uribe do.
Espinoza passed him. Espinoza has jumped Diaz. That's how costly it was.
Wow.
In fact, Espinoza currently has our quickest stop at 9.2 seconds. Gonna watch Diaz coming out of the pits just in time to see that green SRT Ferrari whoosh on by. Oh, Diaz has had a problem. Diaz had a self-spin, but didn't touch the wall. This was in the uphill just recently.
That
Yes.
runoff, that paved runoff, he drifted wide.
I mean, just when you think you've got things under control and you have a podium in your hands, look at how quickly it's gone away from Diaz. I'm not even sure he'll be in the top 5.
I mean, he's back to that 9th now. He has a buffer over Takeshi Kita to hold on to a top 10, but yeah. And you talked about the points scenario too for Diaz. This is just getting ugly for him.
This might lose him second place in the points to Karl Modoff, who we expect is on his way to a win. We've got Hefner in the pits. Looks like Aroyan also in there. Still waiting on 3 cars to take their stops. That's Acosta, Eisler, and Munoz. 15 minutes left to go. Shouldn't be too much longer before they need to come on in.
Yeah, and Acosta just went around again. So he stays out there for at least another mile and a half.
Eisler's in, though. So Eisler now pits.
Let's see if Eisler is able to gain any positions here or gain any ground.
I think he'll be fighting with Stogbauer, if I'm not mistaken. Eisler still stationary.
Yeah,
Nope,
Stogbauer going
Stogbauer's
by now.
Eisler is out, and Diaz is coming up, but Diaz is just behind him. And unfortunately, Eisler's able to park it at the apex, chops down to make sure that he doesn't do it at the second apex. It is a disaster scenario for the number 45. Now that it's all settled out, unless Acosta has something wrong with his pit stop, which is happening right now, Diaz has fallen to 7th after spending most of this race in 2nd place.
It wasn't a perfect stop for Acosta, but it definitely wasn't bad. He gets out pretty cleanly.
It was very quick, actually. It was 8.8 seconds stationary. That's the fastest pit stop of the race. The battle is on. Diaz out of position now. A bad pit stop, a spin in the uphill has sent him backwards, and he only has 13 minutes to try and do something at a track where you really don't want to have to make overtakes. Hopefully the car is still okay. Again, he didn't hit anything when he spun. Eisler's loving this, though. Now having gone up 1 position.
Yeah, he's just got to hang on to it now. The next 13 minutes, he'll have a pretty good race for himself.
He's going to be put under some immense pressure. Eisler's dealt with pressure in this series before. He's never won the championship, but he has certainly won multiple races over time. He's still looking to get his first one this season. In fact, what are Eisler's stats? I'm kind of curious. He's sitting 6th in the points, so he's not doing all that bad. He only has 1 top 5, shockingly.
Yeah, did not have a good round last week at Road Atlanta. Finished down in 19th. That has hurt him severely. Looks like the worst finish of the year for him.
Well, he only has to be just outside the top 5. I'm not sure that it's likely he'll be able to get another top 5. If we watch from Diaz's perspective, getting very, very close to that rear spoiler of the Ferrari. Now that pit stops have cycled through, there are 11 cars left on the lead lap. Continuing to stay right in the tire tracks of the number 727. Got a feeling that Diaz is going to be absolutely kicking himself knowing that he has likely thrown away what was a best case scenario for him, considering he lacked pace compared to Modoff in the latter half of the race. Could have been a damage limitation day. Now, instead, he's watching points slip through his fingers. Boy, I really hope, since we couldn't manage to get a paint to load for Eisler, that I hope he hasn't left the Bushfink team. Oh, this is a good opportunity for Diaz, getting a run coming off of the diving turn. He's looking to the inside, and no defense from Christian Eisler, outbreaking him into the corner. Michael Diaz back up into sixth. There's one bright ray of sunshine after what has been a dismal few laps.
Yeah, he had that one pretty easily. At least in that turn, he worked on him for a dozen laps or so, but once he got alongside of him, it was pretty nice for him to take. He's got a long way to go, very long way, about half a track. Actually, a little bit more than half of the track, up to Stogbauer and Uribe, who are in 4th and 5th.
On board looking back, and I'd say that Eisler was a little bit of a plug in the spigot, because Diaz is already a second ahead and is dashing off. Let's take a look at our leader, Karl Modoff, because he's catching more lap traffic, this being Takeshi Kita, sitting in 11th. Not catching him super quickly.
Yeah, and Modoff's got over an 8-second lead now over Abner Acosta. He just keeps getting faster and faster. It's going to take quite a bit of traffic or something pretty drastic, I think, to mess his race up now. He's just got about a dozen laps more for his second win this season.
Of our winners and losers still up on the screen, Tina now up 9 positions into 12th place.
I know some wouldn't call Matthew Tina a hard charger, but I think no matter how much pace you have here at Lime Rock, it's hard to pass 9 cars on track. And of course, some of those due to attrition, but Tina's had a pretty phenomenal race getting inside the top 15, up into the top 12 now, where he sits.
And Matthew Tina racing the Ferrari this season. Of our mix, because you mentioned at the start of the race, the BMWs in real life lacked a little bit of pace around this track. They certainly don't lack it here. Acosta, our highest BMW, is in 2nd. And then we've got 5th and 6th with the Bimmers. Stogbauer and Diaz there. Could have been a 2nd and 3rd for the highest 2 Bimmers. Diaz would have been up there. Ferrari has been faring decently well. Espinosa sits in 3rd and Uribe in P4. So at least 1 on the podium, 2 in the top 5. But above it all, the one driver managing to make a Porsche fast around this track is Karl Modoff. You have to go all the way down to P10 to get to the next of those cars, and that is Leif Peterson down there. Not sure why we're seeing the Porsches have such a hard time around it. Especially considering Carl's making good use of it.
Right. It's a track that should suit them, you'd think.
Maybe a little lift throttle oversteer with the weight being so far back in the car. We talk about it a whole lot, but Porsche is heavy at the rear end, and maybe it makes these fast sweepers a little tough to deal with.
Definitely. And Lime Rock, also a track that the setups the drivers can really toy with. I mean, 6 of the 7 turns here are right-handers. You can kind of set this up almost like you'd set an oval stock car up, only instead of you setting it up to turn left, you got to set it up to turn right. That oftentimes makes the hardest turn, that turn 3, that left turn.
Yeah, but I imagine, wow, that was a lot of air that we saw, I believe, that was Uribe and his Ferrari coming up and over the hump. He's trying to chase down Espinoza ahead of him. He's got about a second to get onto the podium. Now, Uribe, if I recall, yeah, he had a slightly long stop compared to Espinoza. So this is actually him starting to close in and could make a battle in the final few laps of this race. They've not got very many left to go, and as we keep saying, they go by very fast. So 5.5 minutes on the clock certainly will make him sweat. Looking forward to the day that iRacing does rescan this track. They've been waiting very patiently with the track owners to make sure that all the updates that are in the near future are done so that it doesn't become quickly outdated. Mostly I'm looking forwards to a better chicane on that uphill. Nick.
That's going to be fun. iRacing definitely had a big presence this past weekend in the real world at Lime Rock. So it looks like David Kemmerer got to wave the green flag. Very cool stuff there.
That was excellent to see. We got a little bit of a shout out as the cars were gridding up. We saw some simulators there that had iRacing, which surprisingly the video I saw had VIR. I would have thought they would put line on there. So right on board with Espinoza, looking back at Uribe, has closed it down another few tenths. You can see the sun setting behind them. The track temperature is getting cooler as the day has been going on, with this being already 6:30 p.m. virtual standard time here in Connecticut. It's 88 degrees on track. It was as high as 95 earlier. Love these shots that Dougie keeps giving us. Those cameras low to the ground off the uphill. It is a little bit close down in 13th. Munoz and Hall. Remember, Hall went off track a lot earlier through Big Bend, and Munoz took advantage, got ahead of him. Well, Hall's collected himself, and he's coming back forward. Munoz as well has a little bit of damage with the contact that he made with Clark, and I think it's showing because he caught up a lot on that front stretch.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call that a little bit of damage on Rodrigo Munoz. That is quite a bit. You know, my local hometown demolition derby is this weekend, and Rodrigo Munoz is looking pretty suited to enter that with that front nose, or lack thereof.
Yeah, I think one of the bootleg drivers mistakenly came here. Maybe they thought the modifieds were back at Lime Rock like they once were years ago. Let's stay on this on the front stretch because it looks like it is a straight line speed problem with that grill missing. Hall had fallen back a little bit, so he might miss out on the opportunity. And they do have a lapping car in the form of Diaz coming up.
Yeah, he definitely closes in straight away. Oh, they
both go off. And they come together. Hall gets into the back of him. This is going to lose both of them positions. Target fixation strikes on poor Matt Hall.
A little bit of tunnel vision there, just following the car in front of you.
I'm sure he'd really like to pass him, but that's not going to help.
Man.
Boy, that was bizarre.
Well, they are they've rejoined the track exactly how they left it.
He's trying to match the damage on the front of Munoz. Not
got a ways
nearly
to
as
go.
bad. Yeah. And still can't manage to run him down on the front stretch. He is absolutely stuck behind. This is one of our closest battles on track. And as I say that, things have closed up for third. And Uribe actually was... No, wait, Espinoza was ahead of him before. Sorry, I confused myself for a moment. This is very, very tight, and look at the defensive move Espinosa is feeling threatened. He goes all the way down to the grass. Long way around. Uribe has great pace, has great braking, and he does it the hard way. The number 23 back onto the podium.
Let's see if Espinosa can fight back. I'm not sure he's going to be able to. He doesn't have much time left in the race either. He's going to have to drive hard.
In fact, it's going to be 2 laps to go when our leader crosses the line this time by.
Looks like Uribe pulling away from him already.
Wow, that was a fantastic run by the 23 to not only chase down the 87, but as soon as he got there, as soon as he was on him, he just made it happen. That will net him a podium if he can keep it there and keep it pointed forward. Fans of Michael Diaz, he may have gotten past Christian Eisler up to 6, but he's not done anything more since then. He's unfortunately still about 10 seconds behind the next car up. We are getting the white flag now. There you see Karl Modoff looking to lap Leif Peterson, and to make it only 9 cars on the lead lap. Peterson stays a little wide, trying to let him through without understeering off into the dirt to the outside of that corner. Modoff by cleanly. It's now up to 10 seconds between Modoff and Acosta back in second place. So we take a look at Stogbauer and Espinosa.
He's gotten
still
around
fighting.
him.
Oh yeah, something must have happened to Espinosa.
Falling all the way back to 5th here in the last couple laps.
We'll come back to that replay in a bit because we've got to go to our leader, Karl Modoff, taking win number 2 here as he locks the brakes up in celebration at Lime Rock Park. Acosta is going to take second place, but his points lead has been eaten into. Uribe with a late race pass, getting himself into 3rd. How about Stogbauer going from 6th to 4th? That was very well done. Espinosa, is Espinosa out of fuel?
Oh, maybe.
He is going very, very slow.
He is, yeah.
Wow, and that was costly. Maybe that's why he was caught by Uribe, having to manage his pace. Oh, just ran out on the final lap on the run to the line as cars stream by. This is Stogbauer coming up to him. And he heads down to the inside, once again trying to go defensive, but there's just nothing in it with that car limping along. We'll take a look at our leader here as we come back live, celebrating on his way around. Actually, no, excuse me, we're on replay here. Now we've come back live, but we're going to take a quick break regardless as we step away to bring you the upcoming races on our screen. But don't go away during that because very, very quickly we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around.
Of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Welcome back to Lime Rock Park. This short little circuit hosted round 6 of the PRL GTE Sports Cars Series. And Karl Modoff is getting back in the game for a championship run. He took victory today and also took the pole. So that's a bonus point for Karl, we should point out. Abner Acosta, who's ahead of him in the points, has had his points lead eaten into. But he had a great run himself. Acosta went from 5th to 2nd on a track that's very difficult to pass at. I think he did a commendable job considering. Pablo Uribe, we were watching him gain on other drivers, and it turned out that it was more of a fuel thing. He finished 3rd today, the last spot on the podium. Stogbauer also gained one at the end to get a 4th place, and Michael Diaz, multiple mistakes from him both on pit lane and out on track, wound up putting him in 5th, reverse of Abner Acosta, his teammate. Christian Eisler manages a 6th with Jeffrey Arroyan going from 12th to 7th, another one coming forward. And then Andre Espinoza, unfortunately, did not fuel enough. We mentioned how short his pit stop was. It was a little too short. He ran out of fuel on the last lap. He finishes 8th. Zach Hefner, the last car on the lead lap, in 9th, was ahead of Leif Peterson, the first car lap down in the top 10.
Takeshi Kita made his way up 4 spots from the start, from 15th up to finishing 11th. Matthew Tina 8 spots up from 20th, not setting a qualifying time, up to 12th, remaining in 13th place, right where he started. Matthew Hall saw him in a great battle at the end there with Rodrigo Munoz. He bested him. He'll finish 13th and 14th. Josh Daniels will round out the top 15. Cristobal Valenzuela going to be 2 laps down, back in 16th, and then you get into the DNFs. Joey Trungale, Corey Clark, Avi Utreras, big points implications for him. Came into tonight running 4th in the standings. He'll finish 19th. 20th goes to Kenneth Rodriguez and Tyler Gilmet, listed there as a did not start.
And we've got our winner ready to talk to us, Karl Modoff, with his 2nd of the season. Would probably be pretty happy with that. And Karl, I have to say, looking at your stats, you've now logged 2 wins and you've got 3 top 5s, which means momentum is pretty much in your favor now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's definitely going better, except for last week with that netcode incident, unfortunately. But yeah, momentum's definitely come more on my side, and definitely enjoying this part of the season a little bit more than the beginning, that's for sure.
Can only imagine. Once you managed to get the pole and get out front, did you feel pretty comfortable that you could hold on to things, or did you feel like Diaz maybe was applying some pressure despite him falling off a little later?
Yeah, I was really worried because, like, in practice, 20 laps, down 20% on tire wear. So I really didn't know how the tires were going to last throughout the whole race. So I was really trying to just take it easy and cruise, knowing that's really hard to pass. So I was surprised when I started pulling away from Diaz, but they must have run into similar issues with, tire wear stuff. So yeah, I was very concerned. But as the race went on, it seemed like my pace I was able to run the same lap times the whole hour pretty much, which was really awesome and a nice surprise. I got to give a big shout out to my dad. He sent me a new set of pedals, not a new set, but an old set that I had sent somebody with a load cell. So I was able to use those for the first time, and I think that made a huge difference with my consistency and just being able to trail brake a little bit better. So I'm looking forward to the next rounds with a new set of pedals here.
Well, that is some very cool news about the tech that you've got your hands on. Speaking of the tires, though, we were talking a little bit about the setup of these cars around here and how unique this track is. Did you go for an asymmetrical setup today, or did you balance the car out both ways?
Yeah, cars balance both ways. Totally different spring package than you normally run. Normally it's all soft, but this was kind of different. A different setup, so a little weird for sure, but it was. I thought about doing an asymmetrical setup, but the middle of the track with those lefts, it really kills you to do that. And you lose a lot of time in there. So it's just best just to keep it nice and square.
All right. Well, great job on another victory. 2 out of 6. And we believe this might bump you up into second in the points. Well done.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night. See you next week.
It's Carl Moldoff, our winner here today. Second place, Abner Acosta is ready to talk to Nick Schmeg.
Yeah, I've caught up with our second place finisher, Abner Acosta. And Abner, I'm curious there. You came into tonight leading the points. Passing out there was very difficult. Did you have any kind of game plan coming into this thing?
Hello, guys. Yeah, my game plan was I did not expect to qualify fifth. I was hoping to qualify like third or above, so that kind of ruined my plans. So that changed my game plan, as in the beginning, I had to really overtake the 2 cars in front and be aggressive. And then after that, I just wanted to stay safe. I knew Moto was going to be fast on the Porsche. Did not think it was going to be this fast, but I was expecting him to be quick.
You mentioned there he was fast in the Porsche. Did you see a lot of parity amongst the manufacturers tonight, or did you have a significant struggle driving the BMW?
No, I think the Porsche, I think it's like a 10th, maybe quicker, maybe a little more. I'm not sure, but I think it's fairly even. But I just knew the Porsche was just going to be a strong car for this track.
Also saw you. You mentioned you started 5th as well. Got those positions taken care of pretty quickly, but then you caught your teammate Michael Diaz. Were you guys battling? Do you have any kind of team plans tonight with all of the points situations flying around, or were you just racing and letting them have at it?
We pretty much just go for it. I did have in practice, I had issues running behind people, so at that point, like I was kind of catching him, but not really. So we didn't know if he was actually holding me off. So we just kept it as is, and I just started saving gas behind him. So on the pit stop, I was hoping to get ahead of him and go from there. Unfortunately, I think he spun out on his pit lap. So, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely explains some of the racing we saw amongst you two. It was hard to tell for us as well if he was holding you up or if that was just pure pace. A couple of good races coming forward in the schedule that are certainly going to be exciting. Hopefully we get to talk to you there, and looks like we're going to have a great points run here for the championship late in the season.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, those points are tightening up, which is good for the neutral viewer, bad for whoever is fans of either of those drivers, I suppose. Well, it could be good for, I guess, fans of Modoff. But regardless, it brings us plenty of excitement for the end, which is what we always want. And we always, of course, want to thank our sponsors, including Simulation Motorsports Affinity. They are, again, at SIMMSA.net if you want to see how they can help you get involved in that sim racing community. And also, a big thank you goes out to ButtKicker for the gifts that they have for the prize winners. And of course, you can find them at thebuttkicker.com. Also, a thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. If you want to subscribe, all you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click the big red button that says so, and then you'll get all of the PRL GTE series in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. The next race, it's going to be another tough one and another punishing track, Montreal. That'll be Tuesday, July 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.